Today on Notsam Wrestling, we look at quite possibly the most insane year that we've ever had as wrestling fans. 2023 in review. This is Notsam Wrestling. Welcome to a very special Notsam Wrestling. Hopefully you found some WWE merchandise under the tree, maybe some AEW merchandise under the tree. Hopefully it's a big wrestling celebration, and if not, if today and this week is not a time that you're celebrating the world of professional wrestling, then come into my world. That's why I'm here to be with you, because just because the calendar says the 25th doesn't mean that we don't have a lot to talk about. And before we do, today we're going over the entire year. We're going over basically what has turned into the story of 2023. And we're going to settle upon who is the wrestler of the year. But before we get there, I do want to clear up a couple of things. Number one, and this is not for you. This is probably just for the people who watch clips on Instagram and don't come over here to watch the whole show. I know that Gunther is not from Berlin. I said hometown advantage the same way that Drew McIntyre had a hometown advantage at Clash at the Castle. Clash at the Castle, if I'm not mistaken, was in Wales. The castle was in Wales. Drew McIntyre literally went by the moniker of the Scottish psychopath. Drew McIntyre is not Welsh. However, when he walked in to the Clash at the Castle, he got a hero's welcome. Why? Because that's an area of the world where he's made a huge name for himself. Gunther, when wrestling as Walter, first became famous in Germany, wrestling for WXW. Gunther is a German name. That's the ancestry of the name. So much of the imagery that Gunther uses is German. You don't think that at Bash in Berlin, Gunther's going to be treated like a hometown hero? Come on, with semantics. And then there were some people that were like, Gunther's been beaten. Chad Gable beat him by countout. Look, if you're watching clips from wrestling podcasts and arguing with them using semantics, your problems are greater than mine. But clearly, I mean, look, I knew people were going to get upset. That's why I put the clip out. I knew that the reality of Roman Reigns not losing the title at WrestleMania and going on to hold that title all the way through Bash in Berlin was going to be something that upset people. So if it, what can I tell you? It's fine. It's fine. If there is something that you want to say to my face, you have the opportunity. Don't forget, if you're still going to holiday parties or you're seeing people that you haven't seen in a while, and you all are going to be in the Tampa area on January 26th, that's the Friday before the Royal Rumble. Day before the Royal Rumble, I will be in Tampa, Florida, doing Notsam Wrestling live. You can be there too. 5 p.m. show at Side Splitters Comedy Club in Tampa, Florida. Notsam Wrestling, the live podcast experience. You can get tickets now at notsamlive.com. And after this podcast, if you're still looking for more content, there's so much out there. Last week, we did 2 podcasts. Of course, the regular Monday show and then the interview with Maven here in the Notsam studio drop that people have had very kind words to say, and I really appreciate that. On Friday, over on the Notsam channel, it's not wrestling related, but Baron Corbin and I did a podcast that was just straight up horror movie talk. So if myself and Baron Corbin sitting around for an hour talking about our favorite horror movies, sounds like something that you'd enjoy, go over to the Notsam YouTube channel. You can check it out there. And of course, all the other interviews and everything that we've done over the last month or so here on Notsam Wrestling. Let's just get into it, okay? We all agreed. Wrestling in 2022 was crazy. As a matter of fact, at the end of 2022, I think most of us thought this is one of the craziest years that we've ever seen as wrestling fans. And I don't think we'd seen anything yet. I think 2023 was even more nuts, both from an on-screen perspective and an off-screen perspective. In 2023 on-screen, WWE has become a hotter product than I would argue it has been in 20 years. And AEW has finally officially been removed from its honeymoon period and is dealing with the realities of running a wrestling company. We saw people show up in both promotions that we never thought would be in either promotion. One, we never thought would return to WWE, and the other, I think most people thought would be in WWE forever. We saw AEW flirt with a full-on brand split and debut a new 2-hour television show. And we saw WWE sell and exist as a company not owned by a McMahon. There was an episode of SmackDown this year where we saw The Rock, John Cena, and AJ Styles all on it, all executing finishing moves, all within the same 2-hour time frame. And we saw the rise of new stars, as well as the higher rise of established stars. We saw some of the most compelling Bloodline content that we've ever seen, and far more conversation about whether or not the Bloodline was stale and finished than ever before. And of course, we got a full year of MJF as AEW champion. So in 2023, we basically start with the idea that Dominic Mysterio has gone to jail. You know, we see 2023 opening with the beginning of that dirty Dom, the criminal, the convict, taking shape for the first time. It started in, of course, Thanksgiving with social media videos between Rhea and Dom, then on to Christmas, and then once we get out of the Christmas season and 2023 starts, Dom, as a guy with a teardrop tattoo, is only just beginning. 3 weeks into 2023, Raw is 30. On the 30th anniversary of Raw, we saw a moment that we knew would be iconic, a moment that we knew was iconic when it happened, but I think a moment that none of us knew how iconic it would truly be, when Bray Wyatt stood in the ring, as we were all still speculating on what story Bray Wyatt was really telling us and how it would end up. When he was standing in the ring face-to-face with LA Knight, who was a heel, and The Undertaker returned as the American Badass and whispered something in Bray Wyatt's ear, and that is apparently something that none of us will ever know. We certainly left 2023, or are about to leave 2023, without ever knowing it. But also, on that Raw 30th anniversary show, you had one of the best Raw segments, the best non-wrestling Raw segments ever. Something like 18 to 20 minutes long, and it was the trial of Sami Zayn. The Bloodline took Sami Zayn to court. And you go back and you watch that, and you can just see how hot the Bloodline was coming into 2023. And if you go back and you watch that segment, the full thing is up. Actually, I think WWE just put it up on their YouTube channel recently in its entirety. It's like 18 minutes long. And I mean, you see the emotions and tears. This is where cinema became that key word when describing what Roman Reigns and the Bloodline were doing in WWE. When Roman Reigns was ready to find Sami Zayn guilty because of what the wise man was pointing out, and Sami Zayn refused to defend himself, saying that he had no reason to, and that it was unfair that he should even be asked to, based on what he's done as a member of the Bloodline. And just as Solo Sikoa is ready to drive that Samoan spike into Sami Zayn's neck, it's Jey Uso, the last person left who never trusted Sami Zayn, who Sami has finally won his trust over. Jey is the one who stops the Samoan spike from being driven into Sami Zayn's neck. Jey is the one who's presented a package of evidence showing that Sami Zayn is on the side of the Bloodline. And when Roman finds Sami not guilty, and he says, I don't want to see you again until the Royal Rumble, where you'll have your final test, it's Jey that gives Sami a hug. And Jey is the one who says, even when I despised you, you looked past it and saw the good in me, And that's what family does. Charlotte Flair returned to the WWE immediately and controversially, winning the Women's Championship on SmackDown. Rumors, of course, as they happen every year around this time, they're literally happening now. They're exactly the same. The same rumors that started 2023 are ending 2023. And those are the rumors that it might not be Cody at WrestleMania that faces Roman Reigns. It might be The Rock. Dragon Lee announces that he's signed with WWE and is going over to the NXT brand. And there's a mystery on whether CM Punk will ever be back in AEW. From the beginning of the year, we're getting stories about whether CM Punk is injured, whether he's still going through a suspension, whether he can coexist with anybody in that company, whether the company wants him back. Rumors are absolutely flying. Mercedes Moné, the former Sasha Banks, makes her debut at Wrestle Kingdom for New Japan Pro Wrestling, coming out, delivering a promo and announcing that she will be competing for the new title that New Japan has created. She's got new music. She's got a new look. She shows the world what she's been wanting to do. And outside of storyline, Vince McMahon returns to the WWE after retiring, after being completely out. Vince McMahon returns to the WWE to help facilitate a sale that he will not, as the head shareholder, allow to happen, reportedly, should he not be a part of it. So Vince McMahon is officially back. Rumors began to circulate that Bray Wyatt may be building a new stable. We see the debut of Uncle Howdy. People are speculating as to who's behind the mask, as to not only who's playing the character, but who will be revealed as playing the character. What does he mean? Stephanie McMahon resigns from the WWE in a shock move right after her dad comes back. She's been acting as co-CEO along with Nick Khan. And it's announced that Stephanie McMahon is resigning from her position. Keep in mind, she was not working for the company before she returned as co-CEO. She's now stepping down. Nick Khan is going to be the full-time CEO, Triple H in charge of creative, and Vince McMahon running things from a board perspective as they prepare for a sale, which makes everybody go crazy because of one night on Twitter. This one night on Twitter, when we all know that the WWE is looking to sell to the highest bidder, to the right bidder, who knows. And reports start coming out that the Saudis, that Saudi Arabia not is interested, because they've always been on the list. There's a list of people who may buy WWE. There's Disney on the list, Endeavor's on the list, Amazon is on the list, Saudi Arabia is on the list. And reports come out that it's not that they're interested, it's that the purchase is done. It's going to be announced late, and the more you read, now there's this report, now there's another report, now there's another report, and people just keep echoing, I've heard that too, I've heard that too, I've heard that too, until it's everywhere. And it's really interesting if you go to, like wrestling YouTube channels and you go through their thumbnails, a lot of them are still up there like a time capsule of the night that we all thought that it was a done deal. That Saudi Arabia had, the WWE had been sold to the Saudis. And they said the announcement might come very late tonight based on the time difference. It might come very early tomorrow based on the time difference. But everybody, started running around in the wild speculation that we applaud here on Notsam Wrestling, the absolute wild speculation just turned into reality somehow. And we woke up the next morning, of course, with the realization that WWE had not been purchased. Nick Khan would go on to do interviews later saying that this was an act of fiction, and we never fully got why these reports got so serious from certain sources so quickly and how this became one of those spiraling things. But it became one of these spiraling things, and something that we probably still haven't learned from as a community is the minute that we hear a rumor that is sounds like it could be true or is titillating in some way, we as wrestling fans kind of jump on it immediately and go to town with it. But I guess that's part of the fun of being a wrestling fan. In a really shocking, tragic moment, we find out that Jay Briscoe of the Briscoe brothers has passed away. Jay Briscoe was in a car accident and passed away, and a tribute show is filmed for him, and it would eventually, I think it did eventually make the air, but it would lead to certainly a lot of people talking about their fond memories of him. So many stories coming out about what a wonderful person he was, and Mark Briscoe continuing on kind of in his honor as an AEW and Ring of Honor superstar. As the Royal Rumble approaches, there are rumors that Jay White, the Switchblade from New Japan Pro Wrestling, may be coming to WWE, that his deal is expiring with New Japan, and he may be a surprise entrant in the Royal Rumble. And fuel is added to that fire when WWE decides not to have Cody be a surprise entrant and to announce in advance that Cody Rhodes is indeed returning from pec surgery. He's been out for about 6-7 months at this point, and he'll be returning to the Royal Rumble to compete in the Royal Rumble match. Naomi, the former Naomi, now Trinity, debuts in 2023 with Impact Wrestling. So now we got Naomi in Impact, the former Sasha Banks, now Mercedes Moné in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And Brock Lesnar returns to the WWE right on time for the Royal Rumble and the beginning of WrestleMania season. We get to the Royal Rumble. We see Bray Wyatt having his first pay-per-view match since he's come back to the WWE. He had a couple of live event matches before this and was having his very first pay-per-view match, the Mountain Dew Pitch Black match against LA Knight, in which he won and did it in very spectacular fashion. Cody Rhodes not only returns to the Royal Rumble, but wins the Royal Rumble, coming out at number 30 and winning the Royal Rumble to guarantee himself an opportunity to finish the story at WrestleMania. But the story to the Royal Rumble match, really, because we all assumed that Cody was coming back to win to finish the story. The story of the match became what Gunther did. In the end of 2022, there was a real snowball effect building for Gunther, but it was the Royal Rumble match, and Gunther coming out in the very beginning of the match and being there at the very end of the match that really kicked off what was going to be a remarkable year for the Austrian-born superstar. With all that going on, you know, whether it be the Women's Royal Rumble, the Men's Royal Rumble, the Mountain Dew Pitch Black match, something happened at the Royal Rumble, which generally doesn't happen ever at the Royal Rumble, and that's a Royal Rumble match did not headline the show. The main event of the Royal Rumble 2023 was Roman Reigns versus Kevin Owens for the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship. And the reason that was the main event was not because of the match itself, but because of the angle that took place at the end of that match. It was an angle that had us talking for months, and it was really a remarkable thing because coming off of the segment on the Raw 30th and going into this angle and coming off of this angle at the Royal Rumble, you had a very rare thing, which is everybody talking about what's going on in WWE, and it's not because of a debut, and it's not because of a return, and it's not because of this thing that you never thought would happen finally happening. It's because of a story. It's because people are so wrapped up in this story, and that's the story of Sami Zayn when he tries to stop Roman Reigns from needlessly hitting his best friend Kevin Owens with a steel chair after he's already won the match. And when Roman insists that Sami hit Kevin Owens with that chair. Sami turns around and he hits Roman Reigns. All of the gaslighting, all of the mental torture, all of the putting down, all of it, the questioning, the loyalty questioning, all of it comes to a head as Sami Zayn puts down the tribal chief with that steel chair. And Jey Uso is beside himself, not understanding how Sami Zayn can do that, not just to Roman Reigns, but to him, Jey, who stood up for Sami in front of his family, and Sami, who's proving the family right and proving himself to be somebody that Jey shouldn't have stood up for at all, made for some of the best drama of the entire year. At that point, people start to get worried about how popular Sami Zayn is getting. Everybody is prepared for the story to end at WrestleMania. But the level of drama that the Raw 30th trial of Sami Zayn segment had, and the level of drama that angle at the end of the Royal Rumble had, leads people to wondering if Sami Zayn isn't the one who should be in the position. They don't go to WrestleMania. The Roman and Sami have their match in Montreal in Sami Zayn's hometown. They make people believe that a month before WrestleMania, Sami Zayn may actually beat Roman Reigns. At the SmackDown before Elimination Chamber in Montreal, Sami Zayn has one of those amazing segments where the crowd completely takes it over because they won't stop cheering for the guy. Sami Zayn's wife sits ringside for the match with Roman Reigns. And Roman Reigns, after taunting his wife for the entire match, is able to defeat Sami Zayn in his hometown of Montreal. Bray Wyatt starts promoting a WrestleMania match with Bobby Lashley, but after the very early stages of that promotion, Bray Wyatt disappears from WWE television, and Bobby Lashley's match with Bray Wyatt is not mentioned again. Bobby Lashley is instead put in the Andre the Giant Battle Royal that happens on SmackDown the night before WrestleMania and ends up winning the thing. Bryan Danielson over on the AEW side has an amazing Iron Man match with MJF. This is, of course, coming at a time when MJF is getting criticized somewhat for not wrestling as often as maybe he should as champion, and for not having his work rate of style as some of the other superstars in AEW. Well, MJF proves everybody wrong by having a knockdown, drag out, one of the best Iron Man matches that most of the people that saw that match have ever seen, and being able to end successfully, retaining his AEW championship against Bryan Danielson. At WrestleMania, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, main event night one against the Usos. When the bloodline is at their strongest, the Usos finally lose the undisputed WWE Tag Team Championship in the main event of night one of WrestleMania to Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. As Kevin Owens, who I'm sure had no idea how he would top what he had done the year before with Stone Cold Steve Austin, stands with his best friend, with the pro wrestling gorilla blazoned on his shorts, as the good guys have triumphed over the bad guys, and the bloodline has really been hit with their first major blow to headline night one of WrestleMania. Of course, elsewhere at WrestleMania, Rey Mysterio would beat Dominic Mysterio in what was a fantastic match. Shane McMahon would return, but when he immediately upon returning would tear his quad and have to be taken out of the segment immediately. You'd have a Hell in a Cell match between Edge and the Demon returning, Finn Balor, and of course, the main event of night. Oh, you'd have, I should mention, Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley having one of the best women's matches in the history of WrestleMania, and that says a lot because in the last 5 to 10 years, there have been some incredible women's matches at WrestleMania, especially in the last 5. But of course, what everybody would be left talking about would be the fact that with all this buildup and all this sort of goodwill and the good guys winning, and for the first time in many, 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 many years, the fans are supporting the good guys. They're booing the bad guys. Cody Rhodes would show up to WrestleMania to finish the story, and Cody Rhodes would fail. Something that very few people thought would happen. SoFi Stadium is left stunned at the end of night 2 of WrestleMania, when Cody Rhodes just has to kind of stare blankly ahead as Roman Reigns holds the 2 titles over his head after Solo Sikoa's interference costs Cody Rhodes the main event of WrestleMania. And, it doesn't enable him to finish the story whatsoever. Coming off of WrestleMania, I would say that on a business end, sponsoring matches becomes a thing that WWE figures out how to do without actually taking away from the product. This isn't something new. We'd seen the Golden Egg story. We'd seen the zombie lumberjack match in previous years. But this is when they were able to figure out how to make Rey and Dominic a Cinnamon Toast Crunch match without taking away the drama of the Rey and Dominic match. How to make the 4-way tag match that they had, the Intuit tag team match, without taking away from the tag match itself, which was a huge move business-wise for the WWE. They would continue to do that on pay-per-views, and it would increase their bottom line tremendously. Coming off of WrestleMania, people want to know what's next for Cody Rhodes, and Cody fans are furious when not only do they have to watch him lose to Roman Reigns, but the night after WrestleMania, we think we're getting a Brock Lesnar-Cody Rhodes tag team, and Brock Lesnar destroys Cody Rhodes in the middle of the ring, turning heel once more. You've got a rumored power struggle going on that entire time, like the first 3 months of this year, where people are speculating as to whether Vince McMahon is in charge of WWE or Triple H has the power that he thinks he has. And that comes to a head when the announcement is made that Vince McMahon, who now has a mustache, has sold the WWE officially to Endeavor. Endeavor, the company that in years past had purchased the UFC, purchases the WWE for a reported $9 billion and announced plans to merge the WWE and UFC together, creating a new company called TKO, which would be under the Endeavor umbrella. So Endeavor as a company run multiple companies. One of these companies is TKO, TKO being the company that is the UFC and WWE combined. This is earth-shattering news, as it is the first time in the history of the WWE, going back to the WWF, going back to the WWF, going back to the CWC, when it was just, the original McMahon running East Coast shows. It's the first time this company has not been run by a McMahon. And the stat comes out that in 1983, Vince McMahon bought the WWF from his father for $1 million and the shareholders for $1 million. In 2023, he sold that same company for $9 billion. While all this is going on, there are rumors of a hard brand split coming to AEW, rumors that CM Punk is actually going to return. However, when he does return, they're going to have to split the brand because there are people in the locker room, the elite and their friends, that are not going to be able to work with CM Punk. And so in order to pull this off, they are rumored to be getting a new television show that is going to be where CM Punk lives. And they'll keep the roster separate that way, attempting to, I guess, have their cake and eat it too. Lots of drama posted on a regular basis about CM Punk's status, about the people who don't like CM Punk, about the people who want CM Punk back, about what Tony Khan should be doing. The WWE announces a new World Heavyweight Championship. Coming off of WrestleMania, they acknowledge, for lack of a better term, that Roman Reigns is not going to be around defending the title, and besides that, nobody can get that title off of Roman Reigns. So they need a new champion, a champion that will fight every week if he needs to, a champion that will be a workhorse champion, and that champion will be the new world heavyweight champion. It has been showcased. They announced that the Universal Championship is going to be exclusive to SmackDown, and therefore this new World Heavyweight Championship will be exclusive to Raw. A tournament is set between members of the Raw and SmackDown roster to name the inaugural World Heavyweight Champion, which eventually will become Seth Rollins after he defeats AJ Styles. The women's championship titles are also changed to reflect the new World Heavyweight title, and also to make up for the fact that the women's champions switch brands. Rhea Ripley goes to Raw, Bianca Belair goes to SmackDown, and instead of just swapping titles and messing up the lineage, Rhea Ripley is named the Women's World Champion. And I want to say Bianca's the WWE Women's Champion. I think that's how they name those titles. When the draft happens, not only do people go over to Raw and people go over to SmackDown, but there's a group of superstars that are drafted without a home. There's a group of superstars that are drafted as free agents. While that includes people like Brock Lesnar and Omos, it also includes people like Baron Corbin, as well as some NXT superstars like Von Wagner, which has a lot of people scratching their heads. The LWO is officially relaunched. The Legado del Fantasma from NXT becomes the LWO when Rey Mysterio is added to that group, and when they bring the WWE Backlash pay-per-view to Puerto Rico, Carlito makes a surprise appearance to help out the LWO. At that pay-per-view, Backlash, really one of the keynotes is Cody Rhodes is able to sneak a victory over Brock Lesnar, and Bad Bunny has an absolutely killer match with Damian Priest. And I think this is the moment that things change for Damian Priest and his cohorts, as this is when the real Judgment Day rise takes effect. I had been one of the people who questioned, if you look at the way WrestleMania is laid out, if the Judgment Day wins all their matches and the Bloodline loses all their matches, the Judgment Day comes out the most powerful faction. That's not the way it went down, but with Roman Reigns off TV and the Usos losing those titles at WrestleMania, the Bloodline is far less powerful, and the Judgment Day becomes the predominant heel faction, a faction that I think people wondered if would survive when Triple H took over creative, as they weren't really doing much, becomes huge when love for Damian Priest builds, especially after this Bad Bunny match, when people enjoy that Finn Balor is able to do kind of what Finn Balor has always wanted to do. And I think the key component is watching Dominic Mysterio become one of the top heels in the company due to his ability to play this character that he's playing now so well, and because of the chemistry that he has with Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley goes from somebody who was trying to find her spot on the main roster to the person to emulate on the main roster. And her chemistry with Dominic is just through the roof and leads to must-watch television every week. CM Punk is spotted backstage at a WWE show. A lot of people talk about what his motivations were. A photograph of him is taken in the parking lot. He's apparently asked to leave in the afternoon before the show starts, but apparently he was just shaking hands with people and making sure that any beefs that he had previously had were squashed. There are rumors that Randy Orton may not return. That's when the We Don't Book fantasy book Randy Orton era of Notsam Wrestling really kicks in. And even though WWE, CM Punk is seen backstage at a WWE show, he's still rumored to be coming back to AEW. At the upfronts, Collision is announced. AEW announces this show, Collision. They announced they're going to have a Saturday night show. However, CM Punk is not made official at the announcement, which leaves a lot of people scratching their heads and wondering if at the last minute, AEW was not able to fully cement that Punk would actually come back to the company. Furthermore, they announced that the show Collision is happening. They announced it's going to be a live show most Saturday nights, and they announced where the first several episodes are taking place. However, they don't announce the location of the first show. This, a lot of people would speculate, was because the plan was to have the first show in Chicago, and if they don't have CM Punk at the first show, they can't do it in Chicago, and they can't announce it's going to be in Chicago. People will assume, once they say Chicago, that Punk is coming. All that said, CM Punk does end up returning. They are a week later able to announce that Collision is happening. It's happening in Chicago, and they announced in advance that CM Punk is returning to AEW. When CM Punk does return, he returns with a red velvet bag, which we can assume has the AEW championship in it that he left with, takes a couple of shots at the Young Bucks, and over the weeks does have a shot or two for Hangman Page, but really stays away from them. AEW doesn't acknowledge a hard brand split, but we don't see the Elite or many of their friends on Saturday nights, and we don't see Punk or many of his friends on Wednesday, except for the first Wednesday that he's back, because that happens to be a Wednesday that the Elite is not in town for. MJF, Jungle Boy, Sammy Guevara, and Darby Allin are involved in a four pillars of AEW story that results in a four-way match for that AEW championship. And Cody loses to Brock Lesnar after they do an angle where Brock Lesnar has broken his arm. So in the story of Brock and Cody, we've got Cody sneaking one away from Brock Lesnar, Brock breaking Cody's arm, and then beating him in their second encounter with that broken arm. Just as they announced the new World Heavyweight Champion and Seth Rollins has crowned it, Roman Reigns is given a new all-gold Universal Championship meant to replace the Universal Blue title and the Black WWE title that he's been carrying around. Vince McMahon is still accused of being part of creative and changing shows on a regular basis. And at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, Damian Priest and Io Sky win the Money in the Bank briefcase. Leading up to the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, things get spicy with the bloodline again. And it leads to Jimmy Uso turning on Roman Reigns, kicking him. He super kicks Roman Reigns because he's had enough. Roman is picking on Jay. Jimmy tells Roman to stop. Roman starts picking on Jimmy. Jimmy kicks Roman. Jay ends up approaching Roman, and he ends up taking Jimmy's side. And just like that, the Usos have parted ways from the bloodline, although they've said they're family and they want things to work, but Roman can't treat them the way he's been treating them. It brings us to another Samoan trial segment, which is, it brings us to a tag match first, where it's Solo Sikoa and Roman Reigns versus the Usos. And in an incredible moment, Jey Uso pins Roman Reigns 1, 2, 3, and the Usos win that match. As the bloodline is starting to crumble from within, the Usos call Roman Reigns to the trial of Roman Reigns, a segment that gets just as much attention, if not more, as the trial of Sami Zayn did. And in that segment, Roman submits to Jey Uso that he doesn't want this, he doesn't need this, offers him the tribal chief lay, only to turn on Jey Uso, low blow him, tie up Jey Uso, and force Jey to watch him and Solo beat the stuffing out of his brother, Jimmy Uso. Of course, this leads to SummerSlam, where we main event with Jey Uso and Roman Reigns, and it ends with Jimmy Uso turning on Jey, siding again with Roman Reigns, leaving people to scratch their heads a bit, and Jey Uso losing. This is where people start to wonder, well, I don't know how much that moment made sense, and this is where people start to question whether the bloodline is actually in their third inning, or it's time to find some fresh blood. And the fresh blood that they look to happens in two spots. Number one, it's the third match with Brock Lesnar and Cody Rhodes. Cody gets a decisive victory over Brock Lesnar. And in what Cody says, this is an unscripted moment. Brock Lesnar embraces Cody, holds his arm up in the air, and points at him, anointing him as the guy, before Brock Lesnar pieces out of SummerSlam and says goodbye to the year for WWE. And LA Knight has his big moment. There is this leading up to this. We've had a couple of months of people speculating and being impatient about the LA Knight push. LA Knight is growing and growing and growing in popularity, but he's not becoming that top guy yet. He wins the Slim Jim Battle Royal. He's on the Slim Jim commercials. And this is the moment where we go, okay, guys, we're going to give it to you. LA Knight is a top-tier babyface on SmackDown. Just as LA Knight's story is starting to blossom, over on the AEW side, Christian begins to do some of the best work of his career, which is not something that I would have thought we'd be talking about Christian in 2023, not for any personal reasons. It's just I was watching Christian in TLC ladder matches when I was a young man. But he does some amazing stuff that carries us through the year, starting with Luchasaurus, Nick Wayne's mom, and it goes further and further, and we'll talk about that as we go. Jey Uso comes to SmackDown after SummerSlam, and he quits. He doesn't want to hear Jimmy's excuses. He quits the bloodline. He quits SmackDown. He quits the WWE. Cody announces that he was able to pull some strings, politic, use his power. And Cody brings Jey Uso to Raw as a babyface. And in a very interesting turn, Jey is now forced to live up to the moniker of main event Jey Uso. But he has to stand on his own outside of the bloodline. And he has to look at all the people, Drew McIntyre, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and everybody else that he screwed over with the bloodline. And Cody Rhodes' motives are questioned. He says he did it for the fans, but it doesn't really make sense as the bloodline screwed him over. Worst of all, one could argue. Towards the end of the summer, Edge has his last match in the WWE. He has it with Sheamus because he's never had a match with Sheamus before, and says he doesn't know if or when he'll be back, but right now he's got to go home and figure it all out. Tragedy struck once again in 2023 when, to the shock of most fans who had been speculating for months as to whether Bray Wyatt was going to come back at WrestleMania or Bray Wyatt was going to come back at SummerSlam or Money in the Bank. People wondered if Bray Wyatt had gotten an injury or if he had left because of creative differences or he walked out. There had been no answers. And unfortunately, we got the absolute worst answer of all when we found out that Bray Wyatt had passed away, leaving behind a beautiful family and an incredible legacy that we chronicled here on the show. And it's a loss that I think most of us fans are still feeling to this day. Just a real shock, a real blow to all of us who loved at least some, if not everything, that Bray Wyatt did in the WWE. AEW has an incredible accomplishment when they are able to put 81,000 people inside Wembley Stadium. And they headline it with MJF versus Adam Cole. MJF and Adam Cole and the bro man story that they've been having really take AEW through the summer and into the fall. They have an incredible match. They end with a hug. England loves it. I know I loved it watching it on pay-per-view. And what we see is something that we never thought we'd see. Something that started with strange bedfellows, something that started with trying to figure out if one was going to turn on the other, who had ulterior motives. It ends with MJF actually turning babyface. We've seen him fake turn babyface before. We see MJF actually become a good guy, take down his vulnerabilities, explain to people the bullying that he went through, explain to people why he had a chip on his shoulder, explain to people what he went through early on in the wrestling industry and coming up and gaining success so early, and why he put walls up and why he didn't have any friends and why he treated everybody the way he treated them. And that Adam Cole was the first person that's made him change it. And we got to follow MJF going through this new kind of character evolution where what happens to MJF when he does show his vulnerabilities? What happens to MJF when he creates relationships? I mean, why does Spider-Man wear a mask? Because if people know his secret identity, they can prey on the people that he cares about. It's a vulnerability. It's a weakness. MJF turning babyface creates a new weakness for the character who previously didn't have one and didn't have one by design. From a storyline perspective, that was the most fascinating part to me about AEW All In. However, that would not be the news that came out of it. Once again, involving MJF, the previous year at All Out, and I think this is why people thought that this year wasn't going to get any crazier. Creatively, people were leaving talking about the future world title match that we were getting between MJF and CM Punk. What happened was the Brawl Out press conference and the real life that made the news of what was going on in the storyline kind of obsolete. A similar thing happened. I wouldn't say that MJF's story became obsolete, but it certainly had the headline snatched away from it when, after, again, months of people reporting that there had been a lot of drama behind the scenes. Part of that drama was a report that Jungle Boy Jack Perry was going to be off TV for a period of time, and a couple weeks, going on vacation, whatever he was doing. Didn't matter. It was approved. And in wanting to write his character off for a couple weeks, wanted to take a bump on a windshield using real glass. CM Punk, even though Jack Perry reportedly got permission, CM Punk reportedly didn't want to do the spot on Collision because he didn't want to use real glass on a show that he felt he had ownership of. And CM Punk apparently did have a producer role in AEW. He apparently did have an employee deal as well as a talent deal in AEW, apparently. I don't know, but this is what gets reported. So word gets out that that's one of the things. You're hearing this person got banned from Collision, that person got banned from Collision. Oh, and Jungle Boy wasn't allowed to use real glass. At the pre-show for All In, Jungle Boy and Hook have a match, and they take a bump on a windshield. And Jungle Boy uses that opportunity to go into business for himself and look into the camera lens and yell out, "Real glass, cry me a river." Reportedly, CM Punk is not thrilled about that. Push comes to shove somehow. There are reports that CM Punk is already in a state that he had to take a train to get from the airport to the stadium because the AEW had not supplied transportation for him. Who knows what happens? But what ended up happening is reportedly a physical confrontation backstage between CM Punk and Jungle Boy. Jungle Boy being the last match on the pre-show, CM Punk being the first match of All In against Samoa Joe. They have this scuffle. There's some kind of activity that happens between CM Punk and Tony Khan. Reportedly, Samoa Joe has to break everything up. Reportedly, they're not sure seconds before the show goes on air what match is actually going to start the show. Reportedly, they're able to finally get things in line. And they get the match out there immediately after having this altercation with Jungle Boy. CM Punk goes out to the knowledge of nobody watching on pay-per-view or in Wembley Stadium, has this match with Samoa Joe, wins, and says goodbye to the camera in a way that we don't know he's saying goodbye, as this would end up being the last time that we see CM Punk in an AEW ring. Of course, you know, when we talk about it being the year of the rule number 3 here on Not Sam Wrestling, don't fantasy book Randy Orton, leading up to this is when This Week in CM Punk becomes such a hot segment here on Not Sam Wrestling, because there are rumors, whether they're true or not, every single week, and this is kind of the culmination and the climax, and this takes everything to a different level, as now we're trying to figure out what's going to happen next with CM Punk. What's he going to do? Where's he going to go? While all this is going on, John Cena returns to the WWE, and it's announced that he's coming back while the actors' strike is happening for a 2-month run. September and October, John Cena is going to be back. He starts by being a special referee at Payback in a match between LA Knight and The Miz that LA Knight ends up winning. He kind of is the rocket fuel in the LA Knight babyface push, as we get to a spot where we see Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa versus LA Knight and John Cena. I think that was the match anyway. And then upon John Cena's exit, we get to Crown Jewel, where the 2-month build leads us to the main event, LA Knight versus Roman Reigns, as well as Solo Sikoa versus John Cena. So while John Cena is there, he makes LA Knight look like $1 million by tagging with him, but letting him take the spotlight, and then puts over Solo Sikoa in just this incredible way, where he takes about 15 Samoan spikes to the neck. So while John Cena puts over Solo Sikoa, LA Knight's the biggest babyface there is in this moment. AEW announces that they have fired CM Punk for cause. CM Punk is not released. He's not, he's fired by AEW for cause. That's the announcement. And Tony Khan gets on television and says that it was a very, very difficult decision. Unfortunately, he does say he felt that his life was threatened, which, does cause mockery amongst some. And then, it creates, a whirlwind of speculation that ends up with people wondering if, or speculating that Bryan Danielson himself is the head of some disciplinary committee that fired CM Punk. It gets really, really wild the deeper you go into those rumors. Nia Jax returns to the WWE. The merger becomes official between WWE and UFC, and TKO as a company is officially launched. Triple H is said to be given full and universal control over creative in WWE. There are layoffs. A chunk of WWE talent is laid off, as well as employees that maybe, this happens when companies merge and there are employees for the overall company that could be repeating jobs. Among those releases are Dolph Ziggler and Matt Riddle. Before John Cena exits WWE, he is, as I said at the top of the show, on that episode of SmackDown where not only AJ Styles is there with him, as he is generally, but The Rock returns to SmackDown. The Rock shows up on Pat McAfee's show on a Friday in Denver and tells the story of almost going to WrestleMania last year and doesn't turn down the idea of going to WrestleMania this year. And it leads to tremendous speculation that The Rock versus Roman Reigns still may be on the table, and that the word that got around last year that The Rock was not, or at the beginning of this year, that The Rock was not going to be at WrestleMania because he couldn't train for it, was false, is what The Rock said. So on that same day, The Rock and Pat McAfee both show up to SmackDown and have a tremendous opening segment with Austin Theory. Shinsuke Nakamura turns heel, and as rumors are building and building, AEW puts on the Wrestle Dream pay-per-view, headlined by Darby Allin and Christian Cage. And after Christian wins the match, Adam Copeland debuts. The Rated R superstar, formerly Edge, Adam Copeland debuts for AEW, which a lot of people were surprised by because he's one of those WWE lifer guys, but there are things that he wanted to do in the industry, and we're getting to see him do those things in AEW, where he's working with Christian, his best friend. Edge signed with AEW, but Jade Cargill, who had made a tremendous name for herself, not only in 2023, but also in 2022 in AEW, Jade Cargill finally loses a match when Chris Statlander returns, beats Jade Cargill. Jade Cargill has one more match where she loses to Chris Statlander again clean. And that's when her contract runs out, and Jade Cargill decides instead of staying with AEW, she'll take a deal with WWE, where she will not wrestle in 2023. However, she will be seen on television on Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and pay-per-views, just letting the world know that she's coming, that she is in the cut, and that feel free to speculate wildly because Jade Cargill will be making an impact in the WWE sooner than later. NXT and AEW have an epic head-to-head night where they just decide to lay it all out there. And NXT, after bringing in John Cena, Cody Rhodes, and Paul Heyman, as well as surprise appearances from LA Knight and The Undertaker, do end up beating AEW, and it is a spectacular NXT show. When the guns are loaded, the guns are loaded. And it's a showcase of what the WWE has become, what the WWE can do when they decide they want to put it all out there. Nick Aldis is announced as the new SmackDown general manager, and the authority figures are split, with Adam Pearce now being the general manager of Raw, Nick Aldis being the general manager of SmackDown, and an air of competition is once again part of the brand split between Raw and SmackDown in WWE. AEW signs Ric Flair as part of a Woo Energy deal. Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes win the tag team championship from the Judgment Day and then lose it back to them, but it really puts over Jey Uso when he starts yeeting in a press conference. Yeet, of course, there is some questioning over who owns the copyright on it. There's a week where we're not sure if we can use it. It comes back. But winning the tag titles, even though he lost them with Cody, showing the chemistry the two had, and saying yeet a bunch of times, believe it or not, takes Jey Uso all the way to the next level. Logan Paul wins the United States Championship at the same pay-per-view that Roman Reigns beat LA Knight at and Solo Sikoa beat John Cena at. So Logan Paul is a champion in the WWE. SmackDown signs a TV deal with USA. So as it turns out, next year, SmackDown goes to USA, NXT goes to the CW, and Raw is unannounced. But in a wild rumor, people start speculating that there is a chance that they could go to Warner Brothers Discovery, who right now are the company that have AEW on their television channels. That's a story for 2024. Judgment Day, as the top heel group, go into War Games with Drew McIntyre as the villainous team. And Cody and Seth Rollins team up to put together a team of good guys, which include what we never thought we'd see, the return of Randy Orton, and what we really thought we would never see, the debut of CM Punk in the WWE. Or the return, I should say. The debut of this version of CM Punk in the WWE. The return of CM Punk, where CM Punk, as a shock to everybody, returns to the WWE. Swerve and Hangman have a Texas Deathmatch Classic. Ronda Rousey leaves WWE and wrestles Indies and Ring of Honor. AEW starts a storyline that goes on and on and on and on, wondering who the devil is that is haunting MJF. Tony Storm gets a tremendous character makeover, and becomes a 1920s movie star that everybody absolutely adores. CM Punk has a knockdown, drag-out promo with Seth Rollins. Just an awesome television segment. A movie about the Von Erichs gets released in time for Christmas by A24 in movie theaters. And at the time of this recording, we are 1 day away from CM Punk's first WWE match at a live event on December 26th at Madison Square Garden against, you guessed it, Dominic Mysterio. So, who, after all that, and I'm missing stuff, that went down in 2023, who is the wrestler of the year? Well, of course you have your shoo-ins, right? You have your champions. You have your MJFs. He had the title the whole year. You have your Roman Reigns. He had the title for the whole year. Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, Brock Lesnar, whatever. But when I think of the wrestler of the year, I think of the wrestler who, if you take the 365 days that is 2023, who changed? Who utilized those days? Who does this year best encapsulate? Who told the best story from start to finish? I think Gunther is an easy pick. Starts at the Royal Rumble and goes all the way through right now, where we're sitting here talking about what the inevitable Roman Reigns versus Gunther match is going to look like. Tony Storm is one. Tony Storm, who started as a popular member of the Outcasts in AEW, and now becomes this like insane, ridiculous character that is actually really, really, really working. Tony Storm's a good pick. Swerve is a good pick. Swerve, somebody who was cast off in one of the WWE releases, who is in this tag team with Keith Lee, a couple of stories that don't really go anywhere, stuff that doesn't really pan out, and is now in this spot where people are just counting the days until he faces MJF and possibly becomes the AEW champion. Rhea Ripley is one. I don't think there's many people who had a better year than Rhea Ripley when you put everything together. LA Knight. The fact that LA Knight started as this like mid-tier heel that was there to have guys like Bray Wyatt have their first program with, to get their feet wet back in the WWE. By the end of the year is headlining with Roman Reigns. And even right now, even today, is in that argument as to who's going to be the one to take down the tribal chief. Hard to think of somebody that became more popular in 2023 than LA Knight. Yeah. Christian. The story that Christian has told over this year, and the way that he has made us believe that he is the scumbag that he portrays himself to be. I think Christian can be talked about for best wrestler of the year. I think you'd be a maniac not to say it's Dominic Mysterio. Or at least it's possible. Up until right when I was putting this all together, Dom was my pick. Dominic Mysterio is my favorite wrestler right now. Dominic Mysterio, from the very beginning of this year all the way till the end, has not only created momentum, but has maintained and built and built and built upon it the entire way. And under people's noses is becoming a pretty great wrestler as well. He had his time on Raw and SmackDown to really get his hands all over that character. And then his time in NXT as the North American champion to have great matches. And now, when it comes time for CM Punk to have his first matches back in a WWE ring, just to brush off the dust, who is the guy that they're trusting to go out there with him as the heel to his major babyface? Dominic Mysterio. That's a huge thing. But to me, and this didn't occur to me until I was really watching all the footage, and you go, yeah, when you tell the story, starting at the beginning of 2023 all the way till the end of 2023, there is nobody like Jey Uso. Jey Uso is, to me, the wrestler of 2023. When you go through everything that Jey Uso went through, this is how you tell the story of a character. This is what like great graphic novels are built on. Jey Uso's story, that, by the way, expands back years upon years upon years, but just the story that he told in 2023 is one story. It's kind of a series of stories, but it's one story. Watching this guy build and and achieve and ascend. Seeing Jey Uso go from the guy at the tribal court, the trial of Sami Zayn, when he's the one dramatically defending Sami Zayn, when he's the one who's got to stare at Sami Zayn, right? Seeing Jey get betrayed by Sami at the Royal Rumble. Watching it go through and the build to WrestleMania. Seeing him finally compete with Sami Zayn in that tag match with Kevin Owens, only to have them lose. The tribal chief was able to beat Sami, but Jey and Jimmy were not able to beat Sami and KO. Slowly watching this realization start to sink in, that maybe Sami was right. That maybe when Sami betrayed Roman and the family, that he didn't betray Roman and the family, that he was the one that was betrayed. And the same way Sami was right before, Sami is still right today. Watching Jey struggle with what was going on with the bloodline. Seeing Jey forced into a position where he had to do the right thing. And seeing him defend his brother. Looking at his face and judging his actions and seeing the torment and everything that dude has gone through, not just this year, but over the past several years. But watching it come to a head now. Seeing him get that pinfall victory over Roman Reigns. Watching the bloodline go full circle. The bloodline story started with Roman versus Jey Uso. And at SummerSlam, it came full circle after 3 years. And seeing him headline SummerSlam, looking at his face painted on the side of a building in Detroit. Seeing a stadium full of people there to see that match. Watching Jimmy turn on him, only for Jey to show up on SmackDown and say, I am done with all of it. I'm over it. Jey has only existed as main event Jey Uso in the context of the bloodline. And whether he's with them or against them, they've been around him the whole time. Jey is on Raw and now has no bloodline around him whatsoever. Cody brings him over to Raw. And Jey is now a babyface. Jey strips himself of the colors. Instead of black and red, he's white and blue. And he's just got himself. And what happens? The fans are there for him. The fans relate to him. He's able to start telling these stories. And he comes to this realization that he doesn't need the bloodline. His ghosts are still haunting him along the way. Whether it's Drew McIntyre. And him having to deal with the fact that, yeah, he did bad things to support his family, but that's not the guy he is anymore. Whether it's the reaction that he had when he is now paired with these heroes of the WWE, be it Sami Zayn, Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, finding out that Randy Orton is the guy that he's going to share a team with. He knows what he did to Randy Orton. As Jey is ascending into this character, he's carrying all that baggage with him. This is stuff we haven't seen before in wrestling. And it's just all happening. Jey Uso in 2023 is the very definition of the third rule of Notsam Wrestling. Everything counts. Jey Uso has become main event Jey Uso. When it gets announced that he's facing Seth Rollins for that Universal Championship, and I think other fans are looking at that going, man, it would be great to see Jey Uso as the world champion. We're ready to see Jey Uso as the world champion, and he doesn't have the bloodline with him. Why? Because he's fulfilled that prophecy. I think that as we go into 2024, there's very few people that have grown the way Jey has and have that story the way Jay has. People were saying early in the year that maybe the bloodline was always Jay's story, and it wasn't. The bloodline's always been Roman's story. It's always about Roman. It always has been about Roman. But Roman's story is so big that everyone around him gets affected by those stories. Sami Zayn's story is a spinoff of Roman's story. Cody's story, to an extent, is a spinoff of Roman's story. And Jey Uso is a spinoff of Roman's story. But Jey Uso has created a story that started as a spinoff of Roman's story. And he's now grown that and added to it in a way that has made him one of the top good guys in the company. And it's very rare that somebody so closely associated with a tag team that is so dominant the way the Usos were is able to do that, especially in a context where most fans still don't fully understand why Jimmy turned on him. Are still like, what was that anyway? Jay's moved past it. You don't see, when you see Jay, you don't see a bunch of old We the One shirts on. You see grown-ass men wearing shirts that say the word yeet. Grown-ass men are wearing shirts with the word yeet on it. Who can do that? Jey Uso can. And that's why in 2023, I got to give the year to Jey Uso. There's a lot of people who deserve honorable mention, but to me, if one person is going to get the year, it's got to be main event Jay. What's going to happen in 2024? None of us know, but I've got some ideas. And we'll talk about it next week. Maybe we'll get to some emails. If you got predictions for 2024, we'll do them next week. No emails today as we were just telling the story of 2023. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify. Leave a rating, leave a review. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Watch the podcast on YouTube every single week. Leave a comment, leave a like. And of course, join me in Tampa, Florida, January 26th at Side Splitters Comedy Club for Notsam Wrestling Live the day before the Royal Rumble. Because if we're starting 2024 anything like 2023 was, it's going to be an amazing thing to be a part of. Happy holidays. We'll see you next week when we predict 2024.